All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble. I do see that chat is working. Got plenty of clanking going on over there. I already had my coffee earlier. I had a couple cuppas, some good shit. I've switched brands. Well, not brands, but types of coffee. I'm still getting Dawa Egbert's coffee, but there's a mild blend that is much less acidic. And even though it doesn't have quite as robust a flavor, I prefer it because I like my coffee to be on the not mild as far as caffeine content, of course. I want it to be highly caffeinated, but the flavor is more mild. So I am all amped up and ready to go. Good time had by most, except for people who fucking hate me. I see that we're live over on Rumble. That is what I am discussing, my melanated friend. Anyway, we'll get right into it here as people pile in. We got to talk about Mexican tree elves and where all of the contaminated soil from East Palestine is going. You will be shocked and surprised to find that when they decontaminate a site, the contaminated material has to go somewhere. And sometimes the federal government doesn't want to tell people where it's going, it seems. Michigan and Texas officials unaware Ohio contaminated soil and water taken to their areas. We were sandbagged. A Michigan congresswoman said officials were not given a heads up. I'm just going to read through a little bit of this verbatim. Officials from Texas and Michigan say they were unaware that soil and water from the site of East Palestine, Ohio freight train derailment was being taken to their areas. A Norfolk Southern train with 50 rail cars, 10 of which were carrying vinyl chloride, derailed in East Palestine on February 3rd. It's now ancient history, but people are still talking about it. The public has a greater attention span for this story than most. The derailment caused hazardous chemicals to spill on the ground and sent a plume of smoke up in the air. Well, that was actually them lighting it up, but we'll get past that. Days after the derailment, officials conducted a controlled release of chemicals to avoid the risk of explosion, which is when they lit it up. Residents were evacuated before officials conducted the release, but have since been allowed back, which, you know, they're drinking Trump water right now for a reason. Wastewater and soil from the site of the derailment was taken to hazardous waste companies in both Texas and Michigan. And some officials claim they didn't get any notice. So this problem is becoming somehow worse. They're not even telling the local officials, hey, this soil contains 1 part per thousand of vinyl chloride. You might want to be careful about storing this shit. A spokesperson for the Environmental Protection Agency told Fox News Digital that Norfolk Southern was in charge of the disposal of waste from the East Palestine derailment. Freeze frame. Norfolk Southern is now the whipping boy of the Biden administration. Well, they're the ones that were cutting corners. Well, Orange Man bad also, you know, my regulations that got cut. But you've been blaming them as well for cutting corners and making record profits and all this other stuff. Why are they in charge of the disposal of waste, Joe? Why did you put the company responsible for the derailment in charge of the disposal of waste? We'll probably never know. Adding that the company supplied Ohio EPA with their list of selected and utilized disposal facilities on February 23rd. The spokesperson said that waste shipments from East Palestine derailment site is now on pause. Oh, so you got flack for it, like you did before, and now you pause things. Interesting. So the same Joe Biden administration, keep this in mind, which is blaming Norfolk Southern for at least a share of the reason why the derailment occurred. Well, they were asleep at the helm. They were caught with their pants down. They weren't maintaining the lines properly. Has no problem with them disposing of the waste from the site. It's sort of like what we saw after Fukushima, I suppose, in Japan with TEPCO, which is still an ongoing disaster, by the way. Yeah, TEPCO really screwed the pooch. The seawall wasn't tall enough. The backup generators weren't robust enough. Things weren't up to code, and people fled the facility. Reactor 4 blows its top in a hydrogen explosion. But let's let them dump wastewater into the ocean from cooling the corium that's underneath the ruined reactor system. So yeah, they didn't see fit to tell people, hey, Norfolk Southern's going to be dumping a little something extra into your water supply over there in Texas or Michigan. Will this affect Texas voters? Yeah, but Texas is a red state, so Biden doesn't give a fuck about them. Will it affect anything in Michigan? Yeah, possibly, if we can keep the news on the radar. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Hashtag Clank Nation. Yeah, I can't wait to get back to Texas. I'm going to hunt some wild hogs. I'm going to roast them on a gibbet out in the prairie. James Flowers, I prefer my caffeine carbonated. Monsters, Venoms when I'm broke. $1 Dr. Pepper brand, 7 out of 10. Don't drink Dr. Pepper, that's cancer water. And Venom sucks dick. Monster is okay if you're talking about Monster Zero, the premier millennial energy drink. I drink these guys, but I don't know if they're available outside of the Netherlands. You should import a few crates of 9 energy drink, 0 sugar. Ones with the white can. The black cans are behind there. They say 666 because they're upside down, just like my mind tends to be. The Grizzly, I'm from Michigan, so that's great to learn. I'm sorry, happy that Sheedolf Wimmer has her subjugates safely in mind. Wait till she's president. You thought Cop Mama was bad? I wouldn't worry about Gretchen Whitmer becoming the president of the United States. I don't think that that's going to happen. That Manx guy, $10, no comment, thank you. Mike Rindell, glad to see Adams unblocked you. Yes, we will be talking about the Scott Adams saga later because it now involves Clankdom as well. Interesting redemption arc there with regards to us. The Patriot Chiro, poisoning the population is not new. Fluoride in drinking water linked to low IQ and cancer. They know this. Yes, but not actually to the decay of the pineal gland. I talked about how in Occultism for Beginners by Dower, which precedes fluoridation of water by almost 4 decades, they were already talking about that facet of basic biology. But yes, it does have problems. There are fluoridation systems that have been pulled back over time, actually, because of this. The main problem is if you brush with fluoride toothpaste and drink fluoridated water, and at the dentist you get fluoride trays, you can get fluorosis of the teeth, and that can make them brittle. Brandon Harrison, Woody Harrelson, SNL monologue, based as fuck. I did see that. I thought that was funny. Although it's 2 years belated, it would have been more brave and stunning if he had done that back in, 2021. Hunter Wadley, leftists think Trump was president yesterday. He really does live rent-free in their heads, huh? Absolutely. The Wilford Brimley rabbit. Sometimes I get all kittyful and I meow at people. I'm Wilford Brimley, and I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about diabetes. Call Liberty now. Best prank calls ever, by the way. Wilford Brimley calls Liberty Medical. Go look it up at some point. Next news story. How 15-minute cities turned into an international conspiracy theory. Yes, it's a conspiracy that they're suggesting exactly what they're suggesting. I talked about this morning, and I'll frame it like this. The 15-minute city concept, which is currently being put forward physically in Oxford, but is a suggestion that's being made for the US, the rest of the UK, parts of Europe, etc., really is communistic. And I do mean that in the most literal sense, literally dating to the Soviet Union. If you have never studied commie blocks, look up Stalinka. I think there's a literal documentary about Stalinkas and sort of the apartments and commie block structures that were being made in the early Soviet Union. You will see that it is fundamentally the same thing. The whole goal is to have a community. It's not actually a block, it's multiple blocks, hence the confusion over commie block. You have residential areas. You have commercial areas, although they are centered to some degree. You have some commercial areas that are intrinsic to each commie block. They have their own school, their own medical center, etc. The idea was that people could live and work in the same general vicinity, and they didn't need as much transit. And when you did need transit, you used mass transit, which, of course, in the Soviet Union wasn't necessarily first world, although if you look at New York's subway system, well, I guess they're roughly comparable at this point. And so the idea was that you lived in your commie block, which I explained earlier was an upgrade for some Soviet citizens. Not everyone was actually aggrieved by the Soviet system. If you had nothing and you were living in a one-room dirt-floored shack with a tin roof, you probably liked your Stalinka. It might have been a little bit smaller, but it definitely didn't leak as much, at least for the first 30 or 40 years of its construction. That being said, This has literally been tried before. The commie block system that they've got in mind, where basically you've got the concept is a 15-minute city. So that means a city that you can transit from one side to the other without an automobile or necessarily mass transit at all in 15 minutes. It's very compact. You can do this with a combination of high and medium density zoning. You can have everything there within an area of what would be considered a very small town. You can have a fairly large city, and you can have access to public resources. You have commerce on the lower end, residencies up above. You have the community hospital, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is that when these things are incepted, what you get is a lack of exceptionalism. So everyone has a home, but the home kind of sucks. Everyone has access to medicine, but it's very basic medicine. Everyone has access to transit, but it's subpar transit. It's nothing special. Everything is simply dumbed down. Now, what is the one group of people in the entire world that is always exempt when this kind of mass overhaul project takes place? The rich and the powerful. Klaus Schwab, George Soros, the political elite, people like that. They never have to they're not going on the subway. You think you'll see Klaus Schwab on the public bus? No, he's got his limousine. These people have their own perks of being in charge. They will still eat the filet mignon when you're eating the cricket burger. They will still live in a mansion when you're living in a pod, et cetera, et cetera. This is just a con job. And what it really boils down to is an attempt to take Stalinization, literally speaking, the commie block apartment system, and give it a new name, 15-minute city, so it sounds a little bit better, and pawn it off on far leftoids who will eagerly gobble up the tripe and say, well, this is the only way to keep the world from turning into Tatooine. Everyone is going to die if we don't do this. The rich should be able to continue eating actual meat, living on 1,000-acre premises in, 20-bedroom mansions, but we need to make do with less. It's a way to make people more profitable by turning them basically into veal. Putting them in the pod, feed them the cricket burgers, feed them the soy, and make them subservient. That's what you need. And they'll make do with less because they think they're helping the world, because they are stupid lemmings. That's basically what they are. Keep in mind that human beings are not far removed from ape-like ancestors. Most people still act like them. Let's see. Darun Albane sent you a DM, same name with Lotus Eater's story on Oxford, 15-minute city, fully implemented, 2024. I did see that. Thank you very much, Darun. Make punk rock great again. Good morning, Stick. Should do a special on George Soros-owned BlackRock and its management of Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline. The Wuhan lab of virology is owned by GlaxoSmithKline. Invested in, not owned. It's owned by the Chinese government. Yes, but we can't talk too much about that, frankly, on YouTube. Because, of course, you can get banned for things that are true, but they're not considered to be true by whatever wonky experts YouTube happens to be consulting at the time. You'll have to go and see my new tech exclusive of the day. If you're watching on YouTube, please do follow me on some combination of BitChute, Rumble, Minds, and Odyssey. Links in the description, of course, on this live stream and all of my videos. And then you'll get the real skinny about such subjects. Wilford Brimley, I don't appreciate your attitude, young man. By the way, Wilford Brimley was in a Star Wars movie. Have you ever seen Battle for Endor? It's an Ewok movie from the mid-'80s that they did after the original Star Wars trilogy ends. Stuckman has good reviews of them. Although I liked them a little bit more, I think, than he did. And Wilford Brimley actually is in one of those movies. You have Wilford Brimley with a laser gun and a staff fighting off, I can't remember exactly the name of the villains there. They looked like Planet of the Apes characters. Oh boy, what a movie. I thought it was good. I had no problem with Battle for Endor or for the Ewok Adventure, actually. Yeah, the acting's not great. It's a low-budget, made-for-TV experience. Give them a little bit of slack. Andrew Sobel. Good morning, Sticks. Joe Biden will be re-elected president and the Democrats will take Congress. Will you cry for our kids' future? Why or why not? No, because all foul things come forth in the end. But I do not believe he will be reelected. No, I don't believe that. They might toss him aside in favor of someone that they can actually honk into office that would be believable in that role. But with Biden, it's a real goddamn stretch at this point. Apache, Morning Sticks, did you see the threads about the Sinaloa cartel controlling the AZ government? Possible or Q-tier conspiracy? It's possible. I want more information, though, before I make up my mind on that subject. Ozzy's Robots, Leftoids in 15-minute cities. Seems great to me. Yeah, shouldn't it be at least like a 30-minute city so you can get more exercise on your bicycle? The only vehicle you're allowed to have without paying through the nose for an EV, which would be the only one you're allowed to get probably at a 15-minute city. The Wilford Brimley Rabbit. I did 8 blotters around Christmas time of 2018. Saw a rabbit that looked like Wilford Brimley. And that's where I came up with my channel name. LOL. Shane Kina. Or how about this? Build new highways in key segments of our inner cities, enabling those in, say, New York City or Chicago to leave if they want to. They don't want you to leave the city. They want you living in a pod in the city. That's the point. Chad Scott. Scott Adams has proposed a 15-minute city modeled after the college campus. Seemed interesting, but he said it'd be optional, unlike the mandates from WEF. I think it'd fuck the economy. E100 Omega 123. Have you seen those AI deepfakes of Biden and Trump where they argue with each other over who is the best waifu? No, I haven't. Tic-tac-toed. Sticks. I'm gay. That is all. Interesting. And inspiring. Yeah, so hey, leftoids out there, when you say that you think that I'm homophobic for no apparent reason, there are people that watch the channel that are homosexuals. I should probably remind the rational wiki people of this. Jesus Christ. Next news story. Dilbert comic strip dropped by U.S. media over creator's racist tirade. I covered this as well earlier. Yeah, Scott Adams facing the wrath of cancel culture. I made a video the other day on this subject. Now, Scott Adams has unblocked me, so he has redeemed himself in the eyes of Clank. Although he hasn't refollowed me, he probably should. You know, we can cross-train a little bit, Scott. You know, get aboard the Clank train. You like coffee? I like coffee. That's a fucking no-brainer. Here's what I said. First and foremost, he is effectively exposing the hypocrisy of the legacy media in one important sense. The poll that he's referring to with his racist tirade, where he says, well, blacks have become a hate group and you should get away from them. I don't necessarily agree with all of his summations, to be clear. But the hypocrisy is stark because Scott Adams is conceived of as being, I guess, the next Goebbels or something, because he's analyzing a poll that was made publicly available from Rasmussen, wherein that poll suggests that about a quarter of Black Americans disagree that it's okay to be white. Now, if you're asked, and you're not white, so you don't speak from a white experience, we're going to use leftoid language here, and you say that you do not believe that it's okay for a person to be white. White is not okay. I would class you as a racist, and I would note that so would everyone else if the roles were reversed, although there is no real reversal. This is the framing of the question that they use on the left to make it seem like there's ironically a huge disparity between white and black. If you asked white Americans, is it okay to be black? And 25% of them said no. And another quarter roughly said they're not sure. This would be parroted from the rooftops as evidence of wide-reaching white racism and rage against black people. It would be blamed on MAGA. It would be blamed on white supremacy. It would probably be blamed partially on the internet, leading to calls for more censorship. But none of these people actually considered that to be a newsworthy poll until Scott Adams decided to very deliberately turn it on its head. And that's what he did. Do you really think that Scott Adams didn't fucking know that he was going to be canceled by the fucking newspapers? And by the way, do you think that he fucking goddamn gives a shit? The man is in his 60s. He's got tens of millions of dollars in net worth. Even if you outright cancel everything he's done, no more books, no more Dilbert, you're not allowed on YouTube or any new tech or anything like that, it wouldn't matter. He's got his. He can say exactly what he wants, and he doesn't have to give a fucking shit. At some point, you're like, you know, you just get the attention because you've already got the money. You've already got some attention, so you roll that over into more. And by the way, attention tends to get money as well. So I wish him well on his venture. Now, again, and I will point this out, and I responded to his tweet with regards to my initial video. There is actually a statistical difference between a group of people saying they objectively do not believe it's okay to be white, and a group that says unsure, because that unsure group may just be basically faking it. Like they say, well, yeah, I don't have a problem with white people, but, you know, this sounds like a pointed question. Maybe I'll lie on this particular poll because, you know, you never know who might be listening. Probably the NSA. So I'll give them a pass for it. But again, it is concerning that according to this poll, roughly a quarter of Black Americans within that sample size, it can't necessarily be extrapolated to an absolute number, but it's a general attempt. It's a scattershot in time. That roughly a quarter of those individuals are racist against white people. And Scott Adams says, well, if you knew that a group of people, a quarter of them were racist, they hated you or at least disliked you, why would you want to be around them? Then poses the interesting, and it is valid, question, would they still be considered racist if it were a group other than white people that are at mind within this polling? Yeah, it'd be a little bit different. It'd get legacy media coverage. The only reason people know this poll exists mainly is because Scott Adams decided to effectively troll on the issue. And the idea that he's worried or concerned about Dilbert being canceled by some papers. Again, the legacy media newspapers, who uses them? Nobody gives a shit. If anything, the only reason they get them is for the cartoons. By getting rid of Dilbert, they probably reduce their own paper circulation some, depending on what their clientele is like. So yeah, Scott Adams, although he formerly thought I was a dick, he has unblocked me. And so I will give him a pass. And I do think that it's funny what he's doing. He's playing them for fools, and they're too fucking stupid to understand that. The Grizzly, I forgot to add, if the vinyl chloride seeps into the Great Lakes, that's a large proportion of bottled water, like Nestle and Aquafina have bottling plants there. Can you say utter disaster? They do have filtration systems capable of compensating for that. But yeah, I mean, some fish might have some problems. Where are all the environmentalists complaining that the soft-shell turtles will suffer? Hunter Wadley, I promise a space rock will make the Earth Tatooine eventually. It's happened many times before. Why worry about inches of sea level over 300 years? I would agree. The environmentalists should be looking to developing better nuclear weapons so that they can attack asteroids with them. Something or other. I'm an Alaskan sled dog, and when I come up, when I mush for you. I'm mushing for you. Make a cover. Tic-tac-toed. I'm an anarchist, not a leftist. Ebian wrong. Morning, Sticks. Do you believe that humans only reincarnate as humans, or can we return as anything? By the way, I'm on mushrooms. Send me good vibes, please. I didn't like mushrooms as much. I preferred LSD back in my psychedelic period. I thought it was gentler, which is the opposite of what most people experience. Generally, mushrooms are considered gentler. I didn't get that feeling. They knocked me flat. Of course, I did get azarescens accidentally and used about 4 doses on my first try. So I plead ignorance on that one. Generally speaking, I tried to take a subdose first just to see how I reacted before I launched into it. But I had nothing else to do, and I'm like, wow, mushrooms. Yeah, wow, I haven't used these before. Let's eat the whole bag. I believe that reincarnation is directionless. So yes, you can reincarnate as anything, including something that doesn't technically have ensolation at all. But because you have no concept of time, if you're reincarnated as a blob of jelly, time passes infinitely quickly according to your recollection of it, because you have none, and therefore you just cycle back out instantaneously. If something has no self-awareness, no concept of the passage of time, then its reincarnation is meaningless. There's no suffering involved or anything like that. It's just, it cycles back in seemingly instantaneously. At least that's my belief. The Patriot Chiro, whatever happened to the balloon Biden's classified doc scandal? Were they not trying to astroturf his resignation? Yeah, I haven't heard a lot about balloons or classified documents lately. I wonder why that could be. You take a guess. You've answered your own question. Let's see here. I'm Wilford Brimley, and I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about diabetes testing supplies. I've eaten ice cream and apple pie, and I've done things I shouldn't do. Fed officials flag risk of sticky inflation as PCE comes in hot. Yes, actual inflation remains roughly linear. It has not gone anywhere, this despite multiple rate hikes by the Fed. That's a real goddamn problem, because by now it should have been actually declining as opposed to, hey, it's no longer rising. But the inflation is still there at 6.5%. That's the adjusted inflation rate. Core inflation rose more than expected, actually, year over year. And now the Fed has to raise rates again. The problem is that if they go just a little bit too far with raising rates, by sucking money out of the economy, etc., at some point they possibly cause stagflation. So you still have the sticky inflation, which is, it's not as high as it was. It has dropped off slightly, but it's still relatively high. And then you add rising unemployment to that. You end up with a Jimmy Carter situation. Biden has already passed the buck to the Fed to have them balance this. You'll remember this from last year. Well, my idea about how to tackle inflation is let the Fed do its job. The Fed that all the Democrats don't like right now for that particular purpose. That's because if things go south, he wants to be able to blame them. Well, the Fed overshot. They raised rates too far and too quickly, something like that. This happens every time you have such a problem within the economy. Normally, a president is at the very least willing to address the issue, but Biden doesn't want to talk about it. He's too busy making stupid tweets. We went from mean tweets to inane tweets. We have plenty of those these days. Tic-tac-toe, Daddy Sticks is sexy as fuck. Interesting. He's also married. TJ Youngman, what are your thoughts of recent exposure of Katie Hobbs and the Sinaloa cartel? Again, I need more information about that. If anyone has any additional info other than what's been posted on Twitter and you want to send that to me via Twitter DM, that would be appreciated with regards to the Katie Hobbs Sinaloa issue. Apparently, it involves fake deeds being issued to try to launder money, and not just for Katie Hobbs herself, but for a plethora of other individuals. I believe it, but again, I need more actual evidence. That's why I haven't covered it. I would have covered it the other day. I was like, oh, this is pretty good stuff. That's a major scandal. But then when I dug deeper, I couldn't find any corroboration of a lot of what was being said. It's just in testimony there in Arizona, you've got a claim that this happened. But I need more meat on those bones. I refuse to talk about things when there's no further evidence. A claim is meaningless to me. The Patriot Chiro also, I saw reports of some turtles in the Ohio River ordering pizzas and practicing kung fu. Yeah, Godzilla's going to climb out of those fucking rivers. OMG puppies. Robert Barnes says the Katie Hobbs cartel story is fake, but he still thinks the election there was honk honk. I don't even know if I'm allowed to use that last word when I describe the election. It was a perfect election. Absolutely perfect. Clean, transparent. Everything went right. There were no problems. There were no excessively long wait lines. There were no problems with machines rejecting ballots. There were no problems where people were sent to a different polling place because of a lack of ballots and then told that they couldn't vote. Those no, don't believe your eyes and ears, everyone. Those things never actually happened. I stand with the election integrity supporters. I think our election last time around was one of the greatest we've ever had. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Magnastag Rally Art, what is your thoughts on space exploration and Artemis program worth the money? Yes, I think space exploration is worth the money. Whether it's that program, I believe that one was landing on a comet, if I remember correctly. Landing on Mars, landing on Venus, etc. Yes, absolutely. Anything that enhances our knowledge could come in useful. There are probably alien species that have branched out beyond their home world. In part, they have to probe the surrounding areas to see if they can find a springboard to other locations. Should look into Pluto as well. Plus, we could find some, rare mineral or something like that that's scarce on Earth, and we find out that it's 5% of the crust of one of these planets or something like that. Drill, baby, drill. There's no one living there, so it doesn't matter if you wreck the environment. There's no living things on the planets. Take the goddamn resources. Mr. Wonderful, can you please speak to the joy and privilege of being born under the Constitution and the frustration of seeing it subverted? Yeah, just think what I'm doing now would be impossible without the First Amendment. Yes, Artemis was the moon rocket, yes. Which one was it that was the comet rocket that they did? And it was successful, I think. At first, they thought they'd lost control of the vehicle, but then they reestablished it, I think. And they were still getting some info from it, I can't remember exactly what it was called. They're all running together. I think they should do another man on the moon mission, though, just to raise the prestige of the United States, since we're the only ones apparently capable of doing it. We should make sure there's another American flag up there, although I have a feeling that NASA would unfurl a pride flag instead at this point. So maybe we should entrust Tesla with doing the next moonshot mission. We'll let Elon handle this one. Next news story, the Supreme Court won't hear a case brought by a satirist alleging he was arrested for making fun of cops on Facebook. I oppose the SCOTUS on this. They bounced the case. This is about Novak versus Parma and what Anthony Novak did. And The Onion submitted an amicus briefing, actually. You'll remember I talked about this at the time, the one that was so funny because it was entirely self-deprivation and satire itself, the briefing that they filed. Years ago, Anthony Novak made a Facebook page which was ridiculing the police in his community of Parma. That's in Ohio. They've got other problems right now, so it flies under the radar. And no reasonable person looking at the post would have suspected that it was actually the police main page. They've made it's fairly clear that it was satire, like saying minorities need not apply for this position and weird shit like that. Don't give things to the homeless and just generally ranting about the police there. Seems he had a bit of an axe to grind. I wonder why they arrested him. So they did. They arrested him. They charged him with interfering with police business, which is bullshit. He wasn't impersonating anyone. He was found not guilty. He was acquitted by a jury of his peers and went about his merry business. He chose then to countersue and said, look, they violated my First Amendment rights. I was engaged in perfectly lawful speech here. They arrested me, abused me effectively, and they did this simply because I was satirizing them. And the Supreme Court has decided not to go with the case, not to consider it, under the auspices of qualified immunity. So they're not claiming that the cops didn't violate his First Amendment rights. They're claiming that a violation of his rights is not actionable because they have immunity against having done something that would otherwise be illegal. This I oppose completely. The police should be absolutely due to respect other people's constitutional rights the same way anyone else would be due to do so. If they violate those constitutional rights, they should be culpable. This concept of qualified immunity is used in all sorts of bullshit situations. Civil asset forfeiture is another one. Well, the cop decided to steal $500 from you, but it's okay. They had probable cause that money was drug money. You're not being charged with anything. You haven't been found guilty of anything, but the money disappeared and you can't get it back. Ha ha. That's a problem. SCOTUS generally is reluctant to take up cases, and normally I have no problem with that. You have some case where the decision that you make might upend the country and cause chaos. Okay, I can understand being reluctant to take it. You've been forwarded a case that is meaningless. It's just a stink case. It's frivolous. I can understand maybe not taking it. This is an egregious violation of the First Amendment rights of this particular citizen. I can understand why they didn't decide to take up the case, other than they just want to let the lower court's ruling stand and wait 10, 20 years for other federal court districts to weigh in on similar cases to establish a precedent so that a future incarnation of the Supreme Court can finally make a binding decision. This is what they did with gay marriage, by the way. And well, in some cases, that makes sense. In other cases, like this one, it really doesn't. Oh, we've got a bot in chat or something. I don't know. And I honestly don't care either. The Grizzly, how bad do you think the totally not a recession, you double bad thinker, will be in the coming year? I think it'll get fairly bad. I don't know how bad it will get, but it'll be deeper than the foreshock Biden recession we already had last year. Magnustig Ralliart, SpaceX is tasked with the leader beat out Bezos for contract. Yeah, Bezos lost to them. So did Virgin Galactic. Aussie's robots. We can't assume SCOTUS isn't compromised. I don't think that. I just think it's their normal reluctance to take cases in general. The problem is this is an egregious case. This isn't some minor inconvenience case like, well, the state says that the federal government is not allowed to use these 2 acres of swampland for toad research or something because of some convoluted bullshit from the 18th century. It's not like that. This is an egregious violation of the First Amendment, setting a precedent that people within that district can't satirize the police because they might get arrested for it and there's no recourse. Tic-tac-toe. There's a guy at work that keeps hitting on me. He's 6'9" with a deep voice and beard. I may let him clap my cheeks. If that's what you're into, my dude. Yeah. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the word. Oh, yeah, I can't even read the username. Yeah, I think that's a bot, but I don't give a shit. Christian Thurber, Comet Mission is Lucy. I am familiar with it. Yes. Yeah, I remember now. Over on Rumble, the reset is here, says, are we in a technological gilded age? Yes, unfortunately, but there are some competitors to big tech that are breaking through, like Rumble, where you are currently, along with 2,700 other people. There are almost as many people watching on Rumble as on YouTube. This is becoming a repeat theme. It used to be like a 4-to-1 ratio. Now it's close to 50-50. In all honesty, Rumble has become quite big with regards to streaming. Sometimes I'm getting a fairly decent amount of money off of streaming on Rumble too, so I appreciate that as well. Next news story, Nina Turner, our old friend, is weighing in again on Trayvon Martin. 11 years ago today, 17-year-old Trayvon Martin was killed. Fact check, that's true. His life mattered and he should still be alive today. Yeah, fact check, absolutely. Everyone matters. Well, you know, not really everyone. There are some shit fucks in the world, but Trayvon Martin was just a 17-year-old who was going home with his scissor and planning to say more racist things about white people, like when he called Zimmerman, and this is conveniently left out of this post, a creepy ass cracker. And that is a quote from Trayvon Martin when he was calling his girlfriend, Jeanette or Janelle, I think it was there, the one who apparently writes notes a lot but can't read. It's a little bit of sketchy details there. Look at the link in the description. I want you to see what photo they used to display Trayvon Martin, as he supposedly was, I suppose, when he got killed. It's a picture of him from elementary school with a white cap on and a little diploma, and you know, he looks adorable. He just graduated from 6th grade or 3rd grade, or I'm not exactly sure when this photo was taken. It's an old photo of him. Why did you use an old photo of Trayvon Martin? Is that because all of the contemporary photos from roughly age 15 on show him flipping off the camera or smoking drugs or with a bunch of flavored drink that's clearly made to use drugs using cough syrup? It's called scissorp, literally. Is that why? I think that it is. The fact is that Trayvon Martin should be alive. He should not have attacked George Zimmerman, who was found not guilty by a jury of his peers, causing a bunch of riots and other crazy shit happening. By the way, I remember fucking with some of the polls using 4chan and organizing poll raids for, what's that one show that was, I can't even remember the fucking name. It sort of died out of existence. Some of those reality shows there where they were talking about the case over and over, night after night, and they kept having polls. Do you think Zimmerman was justified? And I remember that poll specifically because I helped pump that shit up as much as I could. And of course, the answer came back, yes, people thought he was justified. That was 4chan doing that. I thought that was a great night. I had a great deal of fun. I was happy when the verdict came in because Zimmerman was clearly attacked by an individual who was beating him to the ground. And then he shot him in self-defense. It was clear-cut self-defense. That's why the jury found him not guilty. I like how many race grifters pretend that's not the case. They think, or they portray themselves as thinking, that George Zimmerman went out with blood and malice on his mind. He's a card-carrying member of the Ku Klux Klan, and he sees a black kid in his neighborhood, and his eyes just go bloodshot immediately. Oh my God, I gotta kill this fucking black person. Because he's hateful. He's filled with hate and spite for black people. I liked how CNN and other groups lightened the photo of him, by the way, because Zimmerman is actually Hispanic. And so they did that to convince people that he was a white supremacist, thus allowing them finally, after years of its usage being more limited, to use the term white Hispanic. No, Zimmerman, yeah, he did, but he's a white Hispanic, so it's still white rage. It's white supremacy. The fact is that Trayvon Martin broke the law. He assaulted a person, possibly with a deadly weapon. We're not sure. He was beating a person against the curb, and he was shot in self-defense. Race grifters don't want you to remember this. They'd rather gaslight. So this is the Trayvon Martin they want you to recall during that event, even though this has nothing to do with Trayvon Martin in the moment that he was shot. Magnus Day, Rally Art, are you into alternative history? Like, what if the Confederacy won the Civil War or World War II won by Germany? No, because it's too speculative. Due to the butterfly effect, you can't really guess what would happen 2 or 3 years later, let alone decades later. I do like playing Victoria too, though, and fucking around with the world and seeing what happens. Like, what if the United States invaded Haiti prior to the Civil War or something like that? Which I do most of the time, by the way. The second that they're not in anyone's sphere, that's the first domino to fall. Christian Thurber, if you want to talk aerospace, I am an aero engineer. I probably wouldn't understand half of what you had to say, my dude. I am, while I'm interested in such things, I'm not exactly on the up and up with regards to higher level math and engineering. Biological sciences, earth sciences, geology, stuff like that. Yeah, I can keep pace. Aerospace, yeah. Hey, you want to discuss the history of biplanes? Sparky, Zimmerman was beyond creepy. Trial was messed up. Yeah, I mean, Zimmerman is a creepy dude, and he comes out and he does stupid shit after he's exonerated. But that doesn't mean that he murdered Trayvon Martin, and he didn't. He acted in self-defense, quite clearly. This was found by a jury of his peers. It's the same as with Rittenhouse. You can think that it's dumb for him to show up with a gun to a protest zone, although he's not, there to fuck with anyone. He was putting out fires, literally. But that doesn't make him a murderer. He reacted in self-defense. Sparky. Zimmerman was stalking Martin. Martin didn't want to lead him to his house, so he waited in the bushes for Zimmerman to leave. Zimmerman came after Martin. Fight or flight ensues. False, and you can't attack somebody simply for following you. You can't do that. That is called attempted murder, actually. And by the way, that's what would have happened if Zimmerman had not shot Trayvon Martin. He would have been beaten to the ground, left unconscious, and he would have called in a report. And then Trayvon Martin would be another case of aggravated assault, possibly with intent to kill. But the media wouldn't have talked about it because of the races involved. Apache, the Trayvon case was one of the biggest things that red-pilled me. I was in high school at the time, and being black and thinking Zimmerman was innocent was fun. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that Trayvon's dead, but you basically tried to kill a person. You were beating his head against the curb. I've seen the pictures of the injuries. Sparky, 6 women weren't a jury of his peers. Well, it was a jury comprised of people from that area, and they found him not guilty. And then the final news story. Mexican president goes viral for claim he has a photo proof of mythical woodland elf. Yes, there must be. I have a feeling the rain that carried the East Palestine chemicals away must have made its way to Mexico prior to this happening. It does not appear Mexican president was joking in his Twitter post. Yes, link in the description. Please look at it yourself. There is a photo there. The president of Mexico is going viral after he posted a photo to social media that he said shows a mythical woodland elf of Mayan folklore. Everything is mythical, Mexico President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said in a Twitter post Saturday, accompanied by 2 photos, including one that the president says shows an aluxe. I think I'm pronouncing that properly, but I may not be. According to traditional Mayan belief, aluxes are small, mischievous creatures that inhabit forests and fields and are prone to playing tricks on people, like hiding things. Some people leave small offerings to appease them. And then they've got the picture there. Now, let me tell you what I think that this probably shows, assuming that he's not just fucking with people and getting attention and currently laughing his ass off. Just because a person's in a position of power doesn't mean they don't have a sense of humor. Let's look at Trump and his Cinco de Mayo tacos for a good example. Assuming that this isn't a hoax, I think this shows a bird, possibly an owl. Take a second look at that photo and ask yourself if some of those parts of this potential body don't look like they might also be parts potentially of the tree. Now look at the eyes. They look awfully goddamn owl-like to me. It could be a vulture, I suppose, or something like that. I do not believe that this is an elf. I will literally be covering this in an occult video, by the way, just because it's so funny. And a cautionary tale about grainy photographs. I noticed that photographs like this, usually they're in really, really primitive resolutions that could have been achieved around 1999. You don't have a whole lot of high quality footage of Bigfoot now, do you? I'm open-minded about the possibility of the existence of such a particular hominid being. Do I believe that there are tree elves down in Mexico wandering around? It's possible, but I want more than a 360 grainy still of that particular creature. Again, one that could literally be an owl. Look, if you look at it, it looks like there's a dark arc within that sort of lighter colored area that looks an awful lot like a branch. If I interpret it that way, what I'm really looking at is a hollow stump with an owl in front of it. And that's all I'm looking at. I would love there to be tree elves in Mexico. Hell, I'd love to go and hang out with them and do tree elf stuff, whatever the fuck that happens to be. It depends on what fictional canon you happen to be in at the time. But I just don't think so. I don't think that this is a Mexican tree elf. I'm sorry, Obrador, but this particular occultist is saying that this is likely not the case. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a tree elf. You know, is it a symbol of good luck or something? I don't know. Mr. Wonderful, America should have hunted down the traitors that fled to Canada and claimed the entire place after the Revolutionary War. Just saying. I wouldn't have to deal with Trudeau. Sparky, Martin understandably felt threatened. Many successful cases of self-defense rely only on that. Zimmerman kept after Martin. Yes, but you are not capable. No, successful case of self-defense. Someone's following you. They have not done anything illegal. They happen to be walking the same direction. The problem with your summation would be if I'm walking down the sidewalk at night and somebody else is walking ahead of me and I'm getting closer, that they have the right to turn around and gun me down because they believe that I'm following them. Well, that may not be the case. I may be intending to go past them. I may be thinking that they're injured. They've got a limp or something. I'm asking if they're okay. No, you do not have the right to assault a person because of that. Trayvon Martin assaulted Zimmerman out of the blue, and he did it for a partially racist motive, I would point out. The only person who used racial language in that entire exchange was Trayvon Martin. We have it on his phone. His girlfriend at the time, Janelle or Jeanette, said that he had described him as a creepy-ass cracker. So it's a racial motive. Can you imagine what the alternative would be if Trayvon Martin were white and had reacted similarly in the scenario because a black person was approaching him? Oh boy, if he said creepy ass, insert other obvious word here, I don't think that anyone would be defending the situation. Magnus Stig, Rally Art. Would you vote for Trump if he picked Ted Cruz as running mate? Ooh. That's a difficult one. I'd have to get back to you on that one, honestly. Ted Cruz is a disingenuous fuck, and I wouldn't want him one heartbeat from the presidency. Suppose it'd be like a Pence situation where I'd have to take some time off from the Trump train. Tic-tac-toe, breaking. Queen Elizabeth dead at 9 due to heroin OD. Apache. Zimmerman lost Martin, and Martin doubled back to confront him, even though he was safe. His girlfriend testified that Trayvon planned on attacking Zimmerman. Yes, it was a premeditated attack in part. It was partially racially motivated, and it never should have happened. Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy that Trayvon Martin's dead. There are some people that are for some reason. I don't want to see anyone be killed, but if you fuck around, you find out. When you assault somebody, they may be armed, and there's a stand your ground law there. Ecstasy Sticks, check out the YouTube channel Thinker Thunker for Bigfoot videos. He gets pretty technical about dimensions of limbs as compared to human proportions, throws out a bunch of fakes, and suggests other videos may be real. I'm interested in Bigfoot lore. I have to take a look at that. And by the way, please send no more super chats. I do have other things to do. Later on, some spring cleaning because there's some fucking cobwebs up there and shit. And I'm getting tired of looking at them. I want a nice dust-free house, especially when the pollen comes out. Cam FNA on Rumble. I would like to add to the Scott Adams thing that I personally have no desire to be around anyone who doesn't want me around, irrespective of race. Given the option, why be uncomfortable? Yeah, I mean, that point stands, absolutely. If another group of people clearly doesn't like you, you don't want to be in their community. You're pissing them off. They're pissing you off or scaring you. It's mutually beneficial if you're not there. Myself, I don't really give a shit. There's a diverse neighborhood around here. Well, by Dutch standards, one of the individuals that lives down the street is Hispanic. There's an Asian couple down there. There are several black people in the neighborhood. I don't give a shit. I don't care what they look like or anything like that. I mean, I have to know them as an individual to judge them. That's the way that I work. That being said, though, yeah, I mean, if you move into a place where you are the outcast automatically because you look totally different or something, yeah, it'd be a difficult experience, of course. Sparky, Zimmerman followed Trey into the bushes. Martin stopped because he didn't want the creep to follow him home and know where he lived. Yeah, well, again, you don't get to assault a person simply because they walk near you or they approach you. He had no particular reason to fear Zimmerman at the time. Zimmerman apparently would have had a reason to fear him, however, because he proceeded to assault him and beat him against the ground. Ozzy's Robots a few weeks ago mentioned Bushies love DeSantis for your information. Yes, I did see that. Scott is pulling a George Carlin, though, says Taylor TV. Well, yeah, I mean, I know it's definitely calculated. Of course it is. But he's not entirely wrong with his, partially with regards to the analytical part, but the basic premise, I can't find anything wrong with Scott's premise. Doc Holliday, Trump's chances in 24. Well, that depends on who gets into the GOP field. We're still 2 years out, so we'll have to wait and see who he's stacked up against. Also, we got to wait to see whether Joe Biden is actually running. We don't have an answer on that right now. I would say that the GOP has a greater chance if Biden runs than if he doesn't, because then you'll actually have someone who's coherent if Biden's not the nominee. Maybe not intelligent, maybe not well put together civically and constitutionally, but they would be more electable than someone who might very well not be able to campaign at all. Yeah, there are now exactly as many people watching on Rumble as there are watching on YouTube, by the way. Damn, it makes me wish that I had more time to do these streams, and possibly at a better time of day. In the future, I am going to do that and invest in better equipment for streaming. I realize that my audio situation is not 100%. I realize that sometimes the camera fucks out. I'm aware of these things. There's nothing that I can do right now because I don't have an office. It would be useless. It'd be pointless. Anything that I buy right now, I have to move anyway when we go to a different location, which we are planning to do. It'd be nice to have a bigger yard. It'd be nice to have an extra room for an office. It'd be nice to be in maybe a more rural situation, not the middle of nowhere, but somewhere small town. Enschede may not be the biggest city in the world. It's roughly the size of Burlington, but by my standards, that's still pretty big. I'm used to Rutland. I'm used to a place that's a tenth the size, or rather a fifth the size, or not even quite. So I'll do what I can. And yes, salty bastard, I will absolutely be going back to the United States, but right now I happen to be in the Netherlands. I kind of like it. I get to split my time between two continents, so I can get my bitter ball in here, my maple syrup there. I don't see the problem with this. Move to higher ground in the Netherlands, Sticks. The world is flooding. Yeah, it would take about 1,000 years at this point for Enschede to be inundated, because I think we're about 15 feet above sea level, actually. Believe it or not, there are places in the Netherlands that are. Not many of them, but they do exist. That's about all. Peace out.